So the question is, has the system failed these Kenyans who put everything on the line to get the truth out? Well, to try and get some answers, let's now speak to two anti-corruption crusaders. Houghton of Amnesty International joins us in studio this evening, and Samuel Kimeu of Transparency International. Gentlemen, welcome to Newsnight.
Good evening.
Thank you.
And before I ask you a question, I also want to say this on the record. We also reached out to the chair of the Council of MARA University, Dr. Samuel Ochola, via phone calls, SMSs, and an email, and got no response. Okay, let's get straight into it. Irungu, let me start with you. A quick reaction from you. You've just watched that, and you followed the story from day one. Your immediate reaction?
Well, of course, as Amnesty International, our primary concern is not just the corruption, but I think the concern is that human life is at risk, and the lives of the whistleblowers, after essentially standing for the integrity of the institution, that they continue to be exposed, and that arrests have not happened yet. And I think that's initially my concern, is that it seems that they are unnecessarily experiencing the pressure of this case, rather than the case proceeding to the next logical step, which is to have the individuals, including the Vice-Chancellor, Mary Walingo, placed on her defense in a court of law, so she can too also have an opportunity to plead her innocence and to plead her case, rather than this dragging on in the public eye.
Samuel Kimeu, I believe you'd want to respond to what you've just seen, but also tell me this. What, in your view, are the hindrances to building a whistleblower culture in this country beyond what you've just watched?
Well, I think, Maura, the primary hindrance is our political culture. And I think that culture might actually go very many years back, that people who blow the whistle, those who tell on things that are happening, are not considered as heroes. We've never quite created a culture where such people are considered as heroes. And as such, you find that even the politics that would enable us to move forward in this matter is not quite there, because we also don't have a culture of accountability.
We also don't have a culture of accountability. Those are your words. Now, Irungu, there has been some controversy in the past over who exactly is a whistleblower. In your view, how would you define that term?
So I think there are two responses to this. First is the legal definition, which comes from the Whistleblowers Protection Act. And I think one of the things that we need to really start this conversation on, if we're going to talk about a more systemic approach to corruption and building a culture of integrity, is really that this act is not in place yet. And it just baffles me that given the levels of corruption, the 8,000 cases that we've seen in our courts, and the daily exposés along the lines of the MARA heist, that we just don't have an act in place that provides for protection. But I think essentially the definition that is a working definition for me is any citizen that essentially honestly provides evidence of abuse of office, of impropriety with regards to the handling of public funds, and reports that to the authorities or to a non-state agency, or in fact, for that matter, to the mass media, as in this case. So I think that for me is the definition. But I think the other thing for me which concerns me a little bit, is that our protection systems for whistleblowers don't really kick in until the court case starts. So from a legal point of view, we don't see protection for whistleblowers.
So if the collecting of evidence takes, what, a year, those whistleblowers are pretty much exposed until
however long it takes for the case to start. And this is why I think the sequel that you've done is very important, because what it does is it reminds the authorities that actually delay in this particular case is actually a risk for very many people involved.
So Kimeu, tell me this. So what options do whistleblowers in this country have? I can imagine there are some watching this program today thinking, I was just about to expose something, but right now I'm worried that I won't be protected. What options would whistleblowers in this country have?
Well, I think, Maura, the options that are there are not quite ideal. And I would say that, as Irungu has just mentioned, a whistleblower will be protected if they are designated as such, or as or as a witness, because a witness can also be a whistleblower. But those are very formal designations that come with the progress of an investigation. So you have very many whistleblowers today who have come forward to give information, but because the cases are taking long to investigate, they actually fear for their own safety and are left pretty much in limbo. And I think part of what we could call tonight is that if we really want to make progress in the fight against corruption, we need to protect whistleblowers and protect them as soon as they come forward and provide information.
Okay. Irungu, one of the big talking points over the last week and a half, I mean, it's been the big talking point for quite some time, but it intensified from last week, were the BBI proposals. Some of them to do with how to deal with corruption. One of them, to be specific, was a proposal to award whistleblowers with 5% of recovered proceeds. In your view, is that practical, and will it work? Will it encourage more people to blow the whistle?
I mean, it is practical, obviously, because I think what it does, it creates an economic incentive, and it allows also for people who may have been involved originally in the economic crime to essentially break and become state witness as well, and I guess a legal deal to be done. But I think for me the key thing, you know, what we've known about whistleblowers in our history is that these are extremely patriotic individuals. They do this not out of any personal gain. They do this actually for the nation and a belief that this country can be great and can be free of cartels. And I think that you know, for me, continues to be the, I guess, the standard that we must put in front of the nation, that actually how we win this war is not by creating incentive for people to report on each other, but is actually that we do this as an act of a patriotic duty to this country.
Mr. Kimeu, you can also respond to that, but another proposal was one where civil servants would be blocked from, for example, running private businesses or competing for government tenders. Again, is that a good idea to you? One, probably sounds like a good idea, but practical, you know, on the ground, does that make sense for you?
Well, I think with respect to providing incentives to whistleblowers, I think the research that we have taken as we made our contribution drafting the Whistleblower Protection Bill shows that those incentives do not necessarily mean more reports. So we have been quite reluctant to endorse incentives for whistleblowers because where those have been put in place, there is no evidence that they have actually changed the fortunes of reporting. And I do not think that we have a shortage of whistleblowers. We have a lot of public-spirited individuals who come forward and give information regarding to these scandals. And the biggest frustration they suffer is inaction or delayed action. So I think if we cranked up our system so that it's able to respond quickly, efficiently, we would find that there will be a lot more Kenyans who will come forward to report, irrespective of whether we offer them incentives or not. And I do think that it's probably better to make sure the system responds other than to seek to create incentives if the system doesn't respond.
Thank you so much. Well, I trust the authorities that are responsible for fighting corruption are watching today, and that whistleblowers watching this broadcast will also feel a bit more braver to reach out, whether it's to a media house, Amnesty, Transparency International, or the government, and share whatever information they may have. Thank you so much to my guests, Samuel Kimeu, Executive Director, Transparency International, and Irungu Houghton, the Executive Director of Amnesty International, for joining me on the program. Remember the hashtag MARA HEIST.